Bola Ahmed made political miscalculation in 2015 to support Buhari. As it concerns the 2023 presidency, it should be clear to anyone with a functioning brain that President Buhari's North has no intention to relinquish power to the Southwest or any zone for that matter. What many may not have realized, however, is that for the next 3 decades at least, if ever, and should Nigeria remain one, power will not leave the North. But in projecting, one must always leave space for the law of unintended consequences and the God factor. The godfather of Lagos politics, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in 2015 led the Southwest into an alliance with the North to bet the All Progressives Alliance or All Progressives Congress. His decision evidently was informed by the expectation that the two geopolitical regions will share power, invariably to the exclusion of the Eastern Bloc, and ultimately that he or the Southwest will take power by the time the North completes 2 terms in 2023. But it has proved to be a miscalculation. Certainly, power play is about conspiracies and alliances. Tinubu is well within his rights to do what he thought would best advance his political interests and that of his region. However, in backing President Muhammadu Buhari, he cut his nose to spite his face. It may not have seemed obvious to many, but once Buhari took power in 2015, Tinubu's political career was in jeopardy. To navigate the presidency without bruises, the best Tinubu could have done was to retire from active politics and assume the role of an elder statesman. He did not. He stayed on, wanting to be president and pushing hard to remain at the center of political discourse. But power is jealous, and if there is any holder of the highest office in the land who would tolerate a co-president, it is not Buhari. Things are beginning to unravel very, very fast. Without Tinubu and by extension the Southwest, Buhari could not have been president today. This is one fact that president men who now dominate the political space and brook no opposition we hate to admit, but it remains true regardless. But being essentially Buhari's kingmaker, it was political naivety to decide to hang around in the expectation that he will share power. He will shed power at that level. The old Machiavellian advice is that the prince must first destroy the one who made him king. Reason: because he could decide tomorrow to make another king. Writing in The Prince, the legendary Niccolo Machiavelli noted, "He who is the cause of another becoming powerful is ruined, because the predominancy has been brought about astuteness or else by force, and both are distributed by him who are being raised to power." Of course, it should have been obvious that in helping to make Buhari president, Tinubu was jeopardizing his political career and plunging the Southwest, and by extension southern Nigeria, into political slavery, whose only parallel in the country's political history is the late Emeka Ojukwu leading the Igbo to war in 1967. With respect to Biafra war, blaming Ojukwu for embarking on it could end one exile in the Igbo country. But if truth be told, the war was avoidable and could have been avoided if Ojukwu had not been too stiff to listen to the likes of Zik and other intellectuals who understood better international politics and diplomacy. This is not to say, nonetheless, that Ojukwu was not sufficiently provoked by the killings of the Igbos in the north in the aftermath of the July 1966 revenge coup that threw up Yakubu Gowon as head of state, and indeed the actions or lack of it of the Gowon-led federal side. Regardless, it was still in his hands to accept to fight or toe the path of diplomacy to which, given the circumstances, was the best option and the only way to win international support for his secession quest. In the event, he went to war and only succeeded in sacrificing more Igbo lives and weakening the Igbo politically. The consequence of the weakening is that it provided fertile ground for the emergence of hegemonic northern power. The imbalance so created is largely responsible for the crisis of Nigeria's national identity. One mistake many Nigerians, particularly the South, make is the assumption that the country is already formed and settled as a secular state. It is not the case. There is the ever-present quest to define the country right, of course, from the 1804 jihad. Colonial rule puts a stop to it. Then, in the post-war years, the Middle Belt soldiers who dominated the army acted as a wedge. Tinubu's alliance with Buhari has served to reenact that quest. Buhari is now apparently out to define the country. The Jagaban's political miscalculation could yet prove too costly. The old generals who I reckoned understand this are already raising the alarm, but of course, the horde of naive, ignorant online crowd of crumbs eaters are blurring the resistance line. As it concerns the 2023 presidency, it should be clear to anyone with a functioning brain that President Buhari's North has no intention of relinquishing power to the Southwest or any zone for that matter. What many may not have realized, however, is that for the next 3 decades at least, if ever, and should Nigeria remain one, power will not leave the North, but in projecting, one must always leave space for the law for unintended consequences and the God factor. But given Buhari's antecedents, was there any grounds for the Southwest particularly to have given him benefits of the doubt in 2015? Absolutely none in my reckoning. However, it would appear that emotion rather than sound political calculation informed their support for Buhari in 2015. It was perhaps more to spite the East than love for Buhari. I had been amazed when in the heat of the moment in 2015, before the election, the news editor of my then media platform branded a fellow reporter who didn't buy into the Buhari presidential project a bloody bastard who is following the Igbo people to betray Yoruba by supporting Jonathan. In the lead up to the 2019 polls, I had on several occasions engaged my landlord, a backer of Buhari's second term project, who loves to discuss politics with me on who between Atiku Abubakar and the president would make a better leader. My insistence was, of course, that Atiku would, after we exhausted all manner of issues he raised against the former vice president. He said finally that he would still back Buhari because Atiku was an Omo Igbo project, and that after Buhari, Yoruba will take power, and after Yoruba, Hausa will take power again. Can you imagine? According to him, he said we will be rotating it like that. Igbo people will never smell that place. I had more of pity for his ignorance. When in 2003 Buhari joined presidential race, he did so apparently to stop the then president Olusegun Obasanjo, not because Obasanjo had performed badly as president, having taken power with the return of democracy in 1999, but because Buhari and the section of the North he represented believed that power had to return to the region. In settling for Obasanjo in 1998-1999, the intention of the northern military class was for him to do 4 years as compensation for MKO Abiola. The Yoruba had become uncontrollable, agitated, and hand power back to the north. But not long after Obasanjo took over, it became clear that he was never going to leave it for anybody. This realization led to agitations. Criticisms of the Obasanjo government was swift in the north, the climax of which was the Sharia crisis in 2000 to take power. However, the anti-Obasanjo forces in the north knew that ultimately it was about going to challenge him at the polls. Buhari emerged as the arrowhead of that challenge, and through speeches and actions that appealed to regional sentiment, he built a cult following that saw him win elections convincingly in the north right from 2003. Until 2014 and 15, Buhari was a regional hero who believed he could become president by winning elections in the north and never thought seriously about campaigning in the south. However, in 2014-2015, the Tinubu-led Southwest gave him an undeserved national platform and through heavy media propaganda dressed him in the robe of a born-again Democrat, but old habits die hard. Once in power, Buhari did not hesitate to take off the borrowed garb of a nationalist and Democrat to put on his original robe of sectionalism. Right from his first set of appointments, he made clear his intentions, and as it stands, he has completely consolidated power in the hands of the North. Buhari is an um, ideology. Usually, ideologies are very resolute and persistent people. Say what you will, he is doubling down on nepotism. Shout Fulanization or Islamization all you will, he will only look for a hate speech bill or social media bill to shut you up rather than re-examine his hate policies. Possibly when Buhari is done with the country, if he has his way, no southerner will, on the basis of an election, ever become president except at the behest of the north. By suppressing votes in the south and inflating figures in the north, the administration is only trying to establish a pattern, a dangerous pattern, which supporters of his party in the south are evidently too blind to see. Hey, hey. That means there's a problem. If they cannot see, that means there's a problem. It is clear that to the discerning where the president is headed, but the question is whether he would succeed. I had pointed out elsewhere that the project would fail ultimately because Nigerians are too many to be subjugated. It would seem from the actions of those controlling the levers of power that there is an attempt to precipitate a national crisis with a view of using force to take over the country. But of course, this is a country of 200 million people. The advantages those who have a legitimate right to bear arms are enjoying at the moment will be lost if there is a total breakdown of law and order, and the country would break into factions controlled by warlords such that it would take a miracle to have it again as one stable country for anyone to control. Well, this is the reality, but some people are too blind. They will not just see it. They are just looking for juicy position and how to get contracts and how to be relevant, how to be get position. That's what they are thinking of. Well, no abuses here. There are things this man knows that an average Nigerian does not know. Remember, he is a Fulani man to the core. My friend, be a good listener. Digest the message before you make comments. God bless you richly for this. Until something happens before Nigeria, we wake up from their slumber. Leave them. Let some of them be talking jargons. Either they believe it or not. If the heaven will collapse, it is going to collapse on everyone, not some group of people. So help us God. You are correct, 100%. 100% correct. Okay. So guys, this is food for thoughts. Okay. I don't want to say much. Like what the guy has said, let's know what you think, because some people are just spewing rubbish, spewing nonsense.